Let's give it up for Kevin. 18,697. That's how many days old I am as of right now, today. And I share that with you this morning as we open up because I read a book called 20,000 Days and Counting by Robert D. Smith. And it was a wake-up call. It was a wake-up call when I read that book because he said the average person lives to 27,375 days, and the wake-up call was, our days are numbered. And I want to make the most of my days, do you?
Oh, yeah.
And my favorite movie, The Shawshank Redemption. Seen it? Favorite scene in that movie, Andy Dufresne is talking to Red. And he says, life comes down to a simple choice. You either get busy living, or you get busy dying. And I don't know about you, but I want to get busy living. It's 2020. We want to set goals. We're here, leaders of our church. We want to make sure that we're setting the right goals and that we've got a great focus for this year. And so how do we make sure that we start this year off right? And we do it the way Jesus told us. Jesus in John chapter 10:10 told us, he says, I have come so that you will have life. And I want life. I want eternal life. But I also want some of that heaven on earth. Don't you? He said, I have come that you may have life and have it abundantly. And so I want to get busy living. I know you do. And we want to have it abundantly for you, your family, our church, and your group. And today we're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about three ways to do that. We're going to talk about purpose. What's your purpose? For you, your family, our group, our church. I mean, let's get really specific today as we break this down. Your purpose. Priorities. How do you make sure you're living the priorities that we've set aside? The priorities that you're establishing here this morning. And the third is persistence. Things don't always go as smoothly as we want them to go. And how do we stay persistent when bad things happen in our life? And so we're going to talk about those three things today. We're going to start with purpose. And I want to share a yogiism. If you're familiar with yogis, I love yogiisms. Yogi has a lot of great quotes, and they make you think sometimes. Yogi starts off the purpose. He says, if you don't know where you're going, you might end up someplace else. Think about it. If you don't know where you're going, you might end up someplace else. So you got to start with the end in mind. And I do get to travel a lot for my job. Travel around the globe, teaching workshops. And I like to think I'm inspiring people, but specifically I'm coaching them on how to be a more effective communicator. And whether that's standing up in front of a group, a one-on-one conversation, or maybe it's conference calls. We're getting a lot of Skype and Zoom calls today that people are having to do. And so coaching people to be more effective. I'm going to be in Bangkok in March for a week, and Asia once or twice a year. The last time I was in Singapore about 8 years ago, I got out of the airport, got into my cab, and the cab driver looks at me and says, where are we headed? And I got a dry sense of humor that I don't know if it always translates as well internationally. My wife says it doesn't translate well domestically. Because as soon as he asked me where we headed, I said, west. That's all I said. And you just, the look on his face when he was just kind of staring at me and was then eventually going to say, well, I need an address. I need you to be a little bit more specific. Because that's a direction, that's not a destination. And I share that story because sometimes we say, well, I want to be successful. I want to be rich. I want to make sure that we have this impact. And I say, well, that's great, that's a direction, but let's get a lot more specific. And we're going to get a lot more specific about things today as we talk about your purpose. I'm going to have you write a few things down as we start to document some of this. Something I've really struggled with is my purpose. That being said, I've owned two different companies. I started my training career in 1990. Very first class I ever delivered was something called Harvard Graphics. Anybody old enough to remember Harvard Graphics? Around the time of WordPerfect and Lotus 123. I had that company for 7 years, or 8 years, 1998, sold it. We built up a $1 million company, sold it in 1999, started iSpeak. I've owned iSpeak for 20 years until yesterday at 3 p.m. Sold it to my business partner. So as of Monday, I don't have a job. No, I'm going to continue to work there for a year and kind of transition out because I didn't feel like it was my purpose. And I've really struggled with my purpose and gone to God many, many times asking God, what's my purpose? And I keep thinking about these things that he's going to put in front of me and these places and people, and they're not happening. And I came across this passage, 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 16, 17, and 18. And for me, it's the starting place of my purpose. It says, be joyful always. Are you joyful always? I don't know if I am. I think there's many days I'm not. Be joyful always. I was like, I'm not really joyful always. It says, pray continuously. You ever had days you forgot to pray? There's been mornings and days that have just kind of zoomed by, and the next thing you know, I wake up the next day and it's like, I didn't pray yesterday. Just something, one thing after another, whether I'm traveling or whether the work got caught up or whether it was emails or whether it was something in the family, and it's like, I didn't pray yesterday. And pray continuously doesn't say pray once a day. So I'm not doing that. And then the third verse of that says, be thankful in all circumstances. All circumstances. I'm really thankful when good things happen to me. But not always so much when something bad happens. It doesn't say be thankful when good things happen in your life. It says be thankful always in all circumstances. And then here's the part that really hit me. It says, for this is God's will for your life in Jesus Christ. And I was like, God, that's what I needed that. I needed this direction to understand, and for me, it's the direction to head there, and it's going to become the foundation of where I want to go. The next chapter in my life is going to be joyful, prayerful, thankful. And it's the next book I'm writing. One of the reasons I'm stepping away from iSpeak is I want to focus on those three things as my purpose. And I want you to start thinking about that, your purpose, and thinking about what your purpose is. And again, I said individually, but I also want you to think about your family. I want you to think about your kids. I want you to think about church and your small group. And my two kids, you mentioned Kip and Kate. Kip is a senior at Southwestern. Kate is a freshman at the University of Texas here in Austin. And they've been a part of this church since they were little. Middle school groups. My daughter loves the mission trip. She'll be going to Africa this summer. That was a really hard decision for us. My 18-year-old baby is going to go to Africa. But she went to Guatemala last year, so we're like, all right, that's the next big step for her. But we're good with it. But one of the advice that I gave her, and I want you to think about how this might apply to you, both my kids, I said, you've got to find something you love. You got to find something that you love to do. And then I started realizing that's not enough. You can find something that you love and something you're really passionate about, but doesn't mean you're going to make a living at it. Doesn't mean it's going to have a lot of impact in this world. Let me give you an example. Tracy and I are watching The Marvelous Miss Maisel right now. Anybody seen that show? I think it's Netflix or Amazon. And we love it. And I said, all right, you know what? I'm going to be a comedian. That's what I decided. I'm going to be a comedian. So I'm passionate about wanting to become a comedian. Okay, you with me? But if passion was all it takes, if love is all it takes, then I would be a comedian. But there's two other things, and you're going to see them in the diagram behind me. You've also got to have some skill, which people tell me I'm lacking when it comes to the comedian part. And you've got to be able to get paid. There's got to be a market for it out there. So there's a market. People get paid well for being a comedian, but I don't have the skill. And if I've got the passion for it, and there's money to be made out there, but I don't have the skill, that's called a dream. Let me give you an example. Let me give you my best joke right now. See if I've got the future for it or not. A termite walks into a bar. Can we do bar jokes in church?
Yes.
A termite walks into a bar and says, "Is the bartender here?"
You're right.
Be an author.
So 3 people got it. The rest of you are like, what are they laughing at?
Yeah.
So a termite who likes to eat wood walks into the bar and says, "Is the bartender here?" I'm going to stick to my day job. Wait a minute, I don't have a day job anymore. Passion, you gotta have some passion. Second thing, you gotta have some skill. You gotta be good at it. Let me give you an example of my dad and a really meaningful thing. So we moved from Chicago to Round Rock, Texas. My parents are still in the same house, right around the corner, not but 3-4 miles from here, right near Forest Creek. Not in Forest Creek. There was no Forest Creek in 1979. And it was a very meaningful time. I'm 10 years old, and the reason we moved was my dad was a meat cutter and was making a career change. He quit his job. I asked him, I said, "Dad, why did you quit?" And he says, I was really good at it. He goes, I had the skill. He goes, I was a really, really good meat cutter and got paid really well for what I did. But he said, I'm missing that top one, the passion. He goes, I really hated my job. I hated going in. It was working in the cold, hurt my back. And he said, it just felt like what it was. It was a job because it was missing that passion ingredient. So he quit, which had a big impact on my life to be able to say, you know what, it's okay to quit something because your passion's not there or that heart's not there. That's okay. And that's the first thing. And he went back to school for 2 years, got his associate's degree, and became a computer programmer. And for 25 years after that, when he moved here, that was his passion. He loves computers, still does to this day. He loves to tinker with computers and play and do things with computers. So he found his passion, and that had a big impact on me because I said, I don't want to find a job in my life. I don't want to work because I have to work. And then I want to go to that other piece, though, that whole idea of being able to make some money out there. And you could be good at something and be passionate about it, but if there's not a way to make some money at it, that could be not a great career either. And I'm really good at fantasy football. I played in 3 leagues this year, won 2 of them. So I'm really good. I got some skill in the fantasy football, and I'm passionate. I love to play fantasy football, and I love to watch football. But nobody's going to pay me to do that. And so that market piece is missing. And if you can find all 3, and that's what I told my kids, I said, whatever it is, I go, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to be, make sure that you can align those 3 things to get to that middle piece, that sweet spot, to do what you love and figure out how you can get back. So that's the first tool I want to share with you, is finding your passion. And maybe it's here at church, maybe it's finding that. My wife runs or helps organize the Mouse program. Loves that. It's her passion. She loves seeing the connection between those who have somebody they sponsor, and she has a lot of interaction with the kids and how appreciative they are. Now, they're 18 to 21 years old, so they don't always show their appreciation in written thank you cards and emails, but they are very appreciative as she talks to them because she knows quite a few of them. And when they get that gift card in the mail or they get that little handwritten note for a final and how much that means to her, she feels really great about what she does to give back. And that's her sweet spot that she's found here at this church. And so I want you to think about finding your sweet spot. And then I want to take this to some other things. Maybe you struggle with what your sweet spot is. What am I good at? I got some passion in some areas, but what really am I good at? What are my strengths? And has anybody read the Strengths Finder book? And there's an assessment with it. Have you taken a couple? If you haven't, I think it's like $15 on Amazon. And it's got a little code in the back. You go online, you answer a bunch of questions, and then it tells you your top 5 strengths. What are you good at? Are you a motivator? Are you somebody that likes to motivate other people? And maybe you don't even realize that until you've taken this assessment. Maybe you're a giver. And maybe you love to learn, and maybe that's your passion. And so this will help identify some of your strengths if you're interested in doing this. So for $15, great investment. Go take the test and get that idea of where your passion lies and what your strengths are. So that's one thing I want to recommend. And then I want to take it to the next level of another tool. And I ran across this tool from my favorite speaker and author, Zig Ziglar. And Zig, first time I got to see him in 1990, he was at the Panama Auditorium. And he was speaking live. First time I'd heard or seen him live, I got his cassette tapes. Y'all remember those? Cassette tapes where I'd go back and listen to him, and I just always loved everything that he talked about. And there was a particular thing called the life wheel. And I used the life wheel for my life, but I also have used what I'm about to show you for my business. And I want you to think about using it for your group here at the church. what he says you do is you draw a circle and you identify things that are most important. Let me start with the life aspect of it. So you identify the things that are most important with your life. And I'm going to show you up on the screen mine. This is my life wheel. And so I put all the things that are important in my life around this wheel. He says you start in the middle at 0 and you go all the way up to 10. And then you start to rank yourself as to how you're doing in these different areas. How are you doing in the area of your relationship with God? How are you doing at work? How are you doing with your relationships at home? How are you doing with your hobbies? Are you spending time with friends? How's your finances? How's your exercise outside of work? And so all of these different aspects, put them around the wheel, and then give yourself 1 to 10, and then draw the line to connect them. And what you're going to find, I filled mine in, is that I had a flat tire. My life wheel was not a circle. It wasn't a perfect circle. There were certain areas of my life that I felt like I was doing way better in than other areas, and that there was some room for me to grow. We've done this exercise at work too. Maybe you'll do it in your small group. Think about your small group. Give me some of those names. What are some things that are really important to your group? Communicating with the church as to what your group does. I think one of the circles that I had, and we've been membership for many, many years, is what all is available at the church. And just knowing what other people. So how does the group communicate? Attendance. We finally got the members we wanted. Now we don't have the attendance that we want for our group. What's another characteristic that might be on your wheel for your group? Communication, attendance. What else? Participation. Financial commitments that might make sure that your mission and your group is being funded. So there's a spoke within the wheel. And so think about this. Maybe brainstorm this with your team to come up with what's our wheel. We've done this at our work. Financially, how are we doing? How's the marketing that we do at our company? How's our sales doing? How's our employee retention? How's the employee relations? And so doing the same life wheel for your group or for your business or for yourself individually. So I think this is a great tool as we talk about purpose. What's my purpose and how do we get better at it? And then as I go through it, I don't have a perfect circle, and there's areas that I'm constantly working on. This thing is constantly shifting because there's certain times that I'm going to get closer to God than other times. There's great times that I've got great relationships at home, and our finances are doing well one time, and our health is doing great, and then all of a sudden it falls all down. And so this is constantly evolving, constantly changing. And one thing that I've always said is that there's no best. There's no best. You're not going to be the best at everything, and there's never going to be a best. That there's always a better. There's always room for me to get better. That I sit there and say, all right, my exercise. And every couple times a year, every year my wife and I'll do Weight Watchers. Every once in a while I'll sit there and go, you know what? Got to lose a few of those pounds. And so I'll sit there and we'll stay on it for a while, and then we'll get into maintenance mode for a while, and then Thanksgiving hits and Christmas hits, and it's the cookies and the candy and all the stuff that we're eating, and all of a sudden we've gained a few more pounds and we need to get back on that Weight Watcher program. And so there's no best, you're going to get there and then you've achieved it. No, you constantly are maintaining that there's no best, there's always a better, there's always another place for you to get to. And so I want you to think about that. Now, the other tool that I use when I'm evaluating something, and I just learned this week. I was up at the Boy Scouts up in Irving, Texas. And I've always called it the good, the bad, and the new. I want to evaluate how I'm doing in a particular area of my life. And I said, all right, what's good? What's working? What's bad? What's not working? And what's new? What's something that I could do different? Well, the Boy Scouts have an interesting way that they do it. They call it roses, thorns, and buds. And I said, all right, I love it. I'm going to start using that now. I love this new twist on this, that when you evaluate an area of your life, I'm going to go to my exercise here for a second. If there's anything good, well, I love to bike, and so I've got a bike. I'll go out a couple of times a week. That's good. Bad is I'm not doing it consistently. I'm not consistent. It's a beautiful day today. Today should be the day that I grab my bike and I head out. But then life gets in the way. And there's a meeting that you have to go to, and there's a family event we got to go attend, and there's emails that I check that I shouldn't be on the weekend, and there's all these things that get in the way. And so that's new. What else can I do to get better? What can I get to that next level? So the buds that I want to plant that'll help me get better as I move forward. And so roses, thorns, but go back and analyze how you're doing in these different areas of your life, things that are most important to you to take you from where you are to that next level. Something that you could use, like this tool. So we start with evaluating that. And here's where I'm going to get you to an exercise now. And I want you to be really specific here, and I'm going to give you just a few minutes, not a lot. And we won't be able to share with everybody, but I definitely want to hear from you. Is I'm going to have you document your purpose for the year. And I'm going to be super specific about it. And I'm going to back up to the story. So about 75 years ago, Ernest Hemingway was asked to write a short story using 6 words. And he wrote the words you see on the screen: for sale, baby shoes, never worn. You know the story? Can you see the story behind those 6 words that he wrote? It's powerful, isn't it? I'm picturing this young couple struggling financially. They find out she's pregnant, whether they were given the shoes or whether they'd saved every penny to buy these shoes for their baby, and then the baby didn't make it. And they're having to turn around and sell those baby shoes. So Ernest Hemingway, in 6 words, wrote a really powerful story. And somebody got that idea, and they wrote a book called 6-Word Memoirs. And there's a website called 6wordmemoirs.com. This is the logo for their website. And on that website, you can submit a 6-word summary of your entire life. It's hard, isn't it? I just saw the facial expressions like, how can I boil my whole life down to 6 words? Not an easy task, is it? But I want you to think like that right now. And I'm going to let you do it in any different way that you want to do this, but I'm going to have you write down 6 words, and you can do them for you individually. You can do them for your family, if you want to take it to the family level. You can do it for the church, or you can do it for yourself. Or, I'm sorry, for your group here at church. So as we sit there and we think about the mission, First Church boldly spreads the love of God in Jesus Christ to bring hope in the world. I think it's a good starting place. If I said, let's boil that down to 6 words, what would those 6 words be if we want to take it for the church? So you can do the entire church. If we boil that down even simpler to 6 key words, what would those 6 words be? To your group here at the church, to your family, or to you individually? I'll let you pick. I'm going to give you, not long, it's going to be like 2 minutes to think about what yours are. Mine are the words that I mentioned earlier. They're joyful always, pray continuously, and thanks forever. Those are my 6 words. For this year, this is my focus for this year as I want to put together that book, Joyful, Prayerful, Thankful. And so let me give you 2 minutes to think about what your 6 words would be. Do this at your table. Again, it's only short, but 2 minutes. See if you can come up with your 6-word summary. And we're going to get a variety of people in different areas, whether that's, again, church, small group, family, your family, or individually. Can we pass this around?
I have always loved my mother.
6 words, love it. And that was quick. So David was able to even think about it and processing this. I love it. If you're ready, raise your hand.
Why did it take so long?
Why did it take so long?
Community, connector, engaging conversations, and meaningful relations.
Love it. Who else? Let's do 2 or 3 more. 2 or 3 more. It's hard, isn't it?
Awake, attendance, consistence, care, expand, and experience.
Two more people. You ready?
This is for you, Methodists. Prayers, presence, gifts, service, and witness.
Excellent. We have one more.
Happiness, relationships, positive, service, caring, friendships.
Now you've got a few minutes to think. That wasn't easy, was it? The next part of this exercise gets even harder. Because what we're going to do next, and you've heard this in some of the sermons, unfortunately I don't make it to church as often as I'd like. Here, I'm off preaching almost every weekend. Somewhere. I fill in when a pastor's out sick or they're out on vacation, and sometimes I get noticed, and sometimes it's Saturday afternoon, I'll find out that I'm preaching the next morning somewhere. And so I'm not here at church very often, and sometimes miss getting to fill my tank on a Sunday morning as well. But I know that this is part of the sermon series right now, one word. And it comes from another one of my favorite authors named John Gordon. He wrote a book called One Word. And he says every year, pick a word that'll be your focus for the year. And again, I want you to think in different layers here. Think about a word for you. What's your word of 2020? For you individually. What would your word for the group that you're in here at church, just your small group, what's that word? What would the word for the church be? And if you had a word for your family, what would it be? And I'm going to let you share. Let me give you a minute to process that, not long. Process what your word would be, and you can share any one of those. The word for church, your small group, your family, or you individually, and I'm going to let you share your one word here next.
Smile.
That one I think could cross all four of those categories, couldn't it?
My group achievement.
Smile, achievement.
Peace.
Smile, achievement, peace. Okay, I'm going to go Peter and then Karen for 1 second.
Patience.
What is it? Hurry up, what? Patience.
Relationships.
Excellent. Relationships.
Joy.
Joy. I got two more here. I got one hand over here, and then I'm heading that other way.
Compassion.
Passion. Who else? I saw a hand this way. Yep.
Engaged.
Engaged. All right, so everybody's got a word down. You got your 6 words. You got your 1 word. As your focus, as you think about my word, if I pick one word, if I boiled it all down, it's going to be joyful. As I look for this year for me, looking for that next joy in my life and what that's going to be and how I'm going to be able to impact others. So you got your word, you're thinking about your word, and yours, patience, might lead into this next story, because I want this now. It's like I want this to happen right now. I want patience right now. And so I want to share the story of about 8 years ago. I had to go across the street, just around the corner, not too far, to Dr. Paul Gates, my orthodontist. Anybody familiar with Dr. Gates? Many of you gone there, your kids have gone there. Our whole family, I bought both of his kids' cars there between our whole family. Tracy twice. And I was grinding my teeth and wore down my bottom 4 teeth literally down to nothing. And there was nothing they could do adjusted my bite. And then they could go in and fix my teeth. So I had to go get braces for 2.5 years to get my bite adjusted. And as soon as I went in for the very first fitting and he started to put them on, and I was like, Dr. Gage, just put them on super tight. I go, put them on as tight as you can. I go, I'm just going to have to, just deal with the pain for as long as I can because I need to speed this up. I go, let's kind of knock it down from 2.5 years to 6 months. And he's just laughing at me, and he's like, that's not how it works. It's not how it works. He says it's a slow process. He goes, it'll be so slow, you won't even notice it. It's so slow as we're adjusting first your teeth and then adjusting your bite. It's every day, little changes that'll eventually get you to your goal. Patience. And it's hard, and so it reminded me of the idea that baby steps. I need to take baby steps towards that goal. I want it right now. I know maybe it's that word, or maybe it's the 6 words, or maybe it's the group that you're in, and you've got all these great things that you want to achieve this year, and I'm saying, be patient. Take some baby steps, but take some steps. That's the key. I think there's so many times I get so overwhelmed that I don't even know where to start sometimes. It's just, I got this to-do list, and I'm overwhelmed with even where to start, and then I do nothing. I end up doing anything but. My wife hates when I'm working at home now. She says she doesn't hate it too much. I do laundry. Because when I get bored, it's like I'm going to go throw a load of laundry in, and then I'll empty the dishwasher, and I just do chores when I don't know what to do to focus at work. You ever done that? Come up with anything but what you're supposed to be doing? And so this right here just reminds me, baby steps. I got to take that first step and continue to keep taking a step towards the goal that I want to achieve. And then I'm okay with small changes. 1%, and I always think of this, 1% doesn't sound like a lot, does it? If you could say 1% every day, every day, I want to go back to the days, every day matters. If every day I focus on being 1% better at whatever it is that I want to do, just 1% doesn't feel like anything, and then you just take that little baby step towards that goal, and before you know it, you've achieved it. Before you know it, you've influenced those other people that are around you. And so we spent a lot of time on this first one, purpose. Purpose is so big because without that, without knowing where you want to go, you won't end up anywhere. And so we got to start with that. Now, the second thing, though, is priorities. I got to get my priorities in alignment. And it's so easy to get distracted by everything. I mean, how often is it? Oh, hold on a second. I keep getting this text. Kidding. How often do we get a text and it just takes you completely out of wherever you were doing or thinking? The phone buzzes. I found myself during times of the day, I would just pull my phone out and check an email. And I'm like, what am I doing? Or I pull my phone out and I'm on Instagram, or I pull my phone out or I'm on Twitter, and I just got this habit of pulling my phone out to check it. And that's not on my purpose. Checking my phone is not part of what I want my priorities to be. And so how do we get our priorities in order? Well, on April 14, 1912, Colonel Peachum was on the Titanic. He was one of 12 millionaires that were aboard the Titanic. And he went back to his stateroom when the announcement was, we've got just a couple of hours, the ship is going under. He said he went back to his stateroom and he stared at over $300,000 worth of cash and jewelry. Staring at it, saying, what do we do? This boat's going down, and a big chunk of his worth was sitting there about to go down with it. And he said sitting next to it were 3 oranges. And he said, I had to make a decision in that moment what was going to be the most beneficial for me. He says, I took the 3 oranges, I put them in my pocket, and I went to safety. The reason I share that is because those 11 other millionaires that were on board did not survive. He was the only millionaire that survived that tragedy, that evening. Because I think his priorities were in alignment. He realized that is what I needed right here, right now, and it wasn't about the money. How often do we get sidetracked by money? Pursuing that dollar. Timothy tells us this in chapter 6, 1 Timothy 6:11. He says, but you, man of God, flee from all of this. All of this. What is he talking about? Flee from all of this. He's talking about false teachings and, most importantly, the love of money. He said, flee from all of this and pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, endurance, and gentleness. I want that. Priorities. I need to get my priorities in order. And it's so hard to get distracted by so many things that we've got around us. Now, I'm thinking you're familiar with this story. I'm going to give you the short version of it. I came across this story that life can be represented by a mason jar. And you put these different objects in there. Have you heard this? And so different things. And what I've heard the story, it said take some golf balls and put them into your mason jar. And these golf balls, and just think about the size of that golf ball. It's really hard to see on that screen, isn't it? A golf ball fitting into the mason jar would fit maybe 5 golf balls at the most. You're not going to get any more in. So you have to boil down what are the 5 most important things in your life that would go into this mason jar first. And then the second thing that you would do is get some pebbles or some marbles, and you're going to put those into the jar after you put the golf balls. Now the golf balls represent the most important things. These pebbles or these marbles would represent other things that are important. And you put those in. Now what happens to those pebbles when you put them in with the golf balls? What happens to them? Yeah, they fill in around the golf balls. They fill in nicely. So there's room for those 5 really important things in your life, and there's room for all those other important things, so long as you put them in the right priorities, as long as you put them in the right order. And then the third ingredient in there is sand. And the sand is all the little stuff. It's all those little things. It's cutting the grass, it's paying the bills, it's fantasy football. It's all that little stuff. But if I put sand in that jar, after the marbles and pebbles, after the golf balls, it also fills in around everything. And then they say at the end that you can choose your beverage of choice. There's room for you to sit down and have a cup of coffee with a friend. Because if you poured some liquid in on top of all of that, it would also fill in very nicely. As long as you prioritize those most important things first, everything fits. But how many times do those little things get in the way? I'm going to go to the sand. It's the Twitter. It's the Instagram. It's all those little things. It's fantasy football that will take away from the marbles, that take away from the golf balls. And if I fill that jar up with all the little stuff, there's 0 room left for the big stuff. And if I try to jam one of those golf balls in, what happens? Filled with sand, and I try to jam that golf ball in, what happens to the jar? It just breaks. There's no room for it, and so it'll just break. Stress, anxiety that we will feel at certain times. And so priorities are important. Living the life that we want in the order that we want. Now, I've always loved that analogy until my wife bought me, I told her to get me a mason jar at the store. She bought me a mini mason jar. And I brought it with me. And what I really love about the mini mason jar, and I've got it up on my bookshelf, is that it's only got room for 1 golf ball. And one of the problems I always had with that original story was the fact that God was a golf ball. My family was a golf ball. Maybe my job was a golf ball. And it didn't feel right to have all of those on the same level. In my version, I've got 1 golf ball, and my 1 golf ball is God. It's the only golf ball that fits in this jar. The marbles, and I did do marbles in here. I've got a marble that represents my family, my kids, my job, and all those other things that are important. And then I used rice. It just kept a lot better than the sand. It got moldy and yucky, especially when I put water in it. So I just stuck with some plain rice to represent all the little stuff. And I've got this sitting up on my bookshelf to remind me of the order of the priorities of the things in my life. So I got purpose. I know what my purpose is, but I got to be able to live the things in the order that I want to live them. This is a visual reminder for me every day on my bookshelf. I hope this is helpful for some of you. If you've heard that story before, but I hope my version takes it to a different level for you at the same time. And so having those priorities. And so I got to go to the next level, though. I got ideas now. Now I've got to be able to do something. And so I read this book called Getting Things Done. If you're familiar with this book, it's a time management book, and I need time management. My wife will be the first to tell you. I'm always late. I'm late for everything. She was super surprised that I was actually on schedule leaving here this morning. I said, no, I'm going to do this. I'm working on time management. So this book, it got a lot of great tips in it, but one of the first things he said is that we need to have a to-do list. And so, how many of us have a to-do list? You have a to-do list, some of us? Now, if your to-do list, I'm going to ask you this, I'm going to show you an example of a good to-do list. Up here on the screen, again, I know it's a little hard to read, very hard to read. And it's a white piece of paper, it's got tons of scribble all over it, and it's got every little nook and cranny all filled in with things to do, all over the place. And I say, here's an example of a good to-do list. And the reason I say it's good is because research says more than 50% of you out here don't have one at all. So if you don't have any to-do list, this is better than nothing. Starting by putting things down. I can't have all this stuff floating in my head. I've got to be able to get it down on paper. So putting it down is good. It's better than having a bunch of Post-it notes, because I always just put things on Post-it notes. And then the next thing you know, your whole office fills up with Post-it notes. And then it's really hard to organize or prioritize all those Post-it notes that are all over. And so having a very busy piece of paper is better than an office full of Post-it notes. But what we really want to get to is a really good organized to-do list. Something where I have them in priorities. I think about what's important, what needs to get done, when they need to get done, and I put all these things down on paper. That's going to be how I can get things done and start to organize those. But even after I've done all that, I get super stressed because I got this long list of some great things on here, and I have this tendency to dabble. I dabble in different things, and I never get anything finished, but I dabble in a little bit of this one, and I dabble in a little bit of that one, and I never get anything finished. Anybody else do this? And so I always feel like I'm doing stuff, but at the end of the day, it's like I got nothing done. Or I gravitate towards the really small stuff at the bottom of the list. It's like, hey, you know what, I'll just get that one done, I can cross it off. And I get all these little things done, but then those big things, those golf balls, end up sitting there, and I end up never getting those done. And so I want you to think like this. I had an opportunity to go take a golf lesson a couple of years ago at Golfsmith in Austin. They're shut down now. Tracy bought me a 1-hour lesson with a golf instructor. And it was only 1 hour, and I got to go in there, and he gave me all these tips and tricks on how to hit the golf ball. And it's going to be hard to demonstrate while I'm holding the mic, but he gives me this interlocking grip to do on the club, and he shows me how to line up. Shows me where my club's supposed to be when I line up, where it's supposed to be on my backswing, on the follow-through. I mean, he walks me through all of it. Shows me the adjustments that need to happen with my elbows and my hips and the follow-through, the whole works. And I felt really good about it, and afterwards I went and started hitting a couple balls on the practice range because they gave me a free bucket of balls afterwards. And I very quickly started realizing that after that lesson, I'd become a worse golfer. What do you think was happening? Why did I become worse? Yeah, too much. I had all this stuff, and I'm over there by myself, and wait, did he say? No, he said, don't shift yet. Wait, elbows. No, he said, elbows in. No. Ugh. And I just was so frustrated that I quit playing. For 15 years, I hadn't played. Never picked up a club after that, because I was so frustrated because I just got into my own head. I'm actually thinking that was Tracy's intention of this lesson. When Kip was going to Terra Vista when he was 15, and I was driving him over there, and he was taking a lesson. I'm going to give you kind of part 2 of the story. And there was an open bay, and he's taking a lesson. I'm driving him there, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go see. He's going to be playing. I'd love to be able to go play with him, so I'm going to go hit a few balls, see how bad my swing is. And I'm realizing that my ball's going left and right and everywhere but straight. And I was like, yep, I'm not going to be able to play with him. It's really frustrating when you can't find your ball at any given hole. So I said, I'm just not going to be able to play. But his instructor walked over to me and he said one thing to me. He walked over and he said, sir, he goes, if you'll keep that left elbow straight, you're going to find that your ball stays a lot straighter. It's the only thing he said to me, and then he walks back over and he starts working with Kip. So what do you think I did from that moment forward? I just worked on the left elbow. Everything else, I'm still doing a lot of other things wrong, but at that moment forward, that's all I did. I focused on that one thing, and I got it right, and at least my ball was staying straight. It wasn't great shots every time, but at least it was staying in the right direction. And I can play. I might have 10 shots to his 4, but at least I'm on the fairway, or at least close to the fairway, versus spending 20 minutes in the woods trying to find my golf balls. And so take that to-do list, find that one thing, and focus on it. Focus on that one thing first. And that's how we can start to knock out things and make sure that we're staying persistent. And it leads me to this next piece, because that great list and focusing on one thing is all great until you don't do something that's super important. And so here's the question. It's an odd question, but does anybody know the best time to plant a tree? I've used that one before, haven't I?
Today.
Today? Who used? Somebody used it? Blew my joke. You knew it. 20 years ago. Best time to plant a tree, 20 years ago. Next best time to plant the tree? Right now. Right now, right here, right now. In order for you to do that, I got to focus on that one thing, and I want you to think about that one thing that you want to do, and then you want to focus on it. And then that's going to lead us to our last piece here. Our last piece is persistence. Things are going to happen. They're going to set us back, and we've got to be able to overcome. I've got a very short 30-second clip that I want to share with you before we move into the persistence.
That's not good.
Oh, I need this. I'm already late.
Somebody will come. Anybody out there?
Do you have a phone?
No. Sorry. Somebody! Hello? There are two people stuck on an escalator and we need help. Now, would somebody please do something? I don't believe this. You gotta be kidding me.
I'm gonna cry.
Well, there's not enough left to do.
Sometimes things don't go well. I love the first three words in Scott Peck's book, A Road Less Traveled. The first three words say, life is difficult. Now, I was going to share with you a John Wayne quote to go with that, but Tracy made me delete it. You know it?
Yes.
Okay, she said, I don't think it was appropriate for the audience.
Life's tough, but it's even tougher if you're stupid.
Life's tough, but it's even tougher if you're stupid. Life is tough, it's even tougher if you're stupid. So life is difficult, it's even more difficult if you're stupid. Maybe I should have said that. All right. I think when something happens in our life, it's not about getting stuck there. It's this quote here on the screen. You don't drown when you fall into water, you drown when you stay there. And so we don't want to stay when we get stuck. We want to be able to do something about it. We also want to look at it from a very positive perspective. And I love James. James tells us this in James 1, chapter 2, verse 4. He says, consider it pure joy. And this is super hard for me to read because it's hard. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. It's a true statement, isn't it? It's going to produce perseverance for us in those situations when they happen, whatever those are. I love Rick Warren in his book, Purpose-Driven Life. He has this great example where he says God changes caterpillars into butterflies, sand into pearls, and coal into diamonds using two things: time and pressure. And he's doing the same with us. Think about that, time and pressure. When you're in a pressure situation, how do you handle it? How are we handling that? And how are we being persistent? And I want you to think, do you react like a carrot, an egg, or a coffee bean? So you have this challenge that has happened in your life, and I'll give you mine, and this week is my 18-year anniversary of my kidney transplant. So 18 years ago, my brother donated a kidney to me to save my life. And January 30th is my 18-year celebration of that. I'm very thankful for it today. Not so much 18 years ago. I was mad. I was mad at God. I didn't understand. Kate was barely a year old. Kip was 3 years old. And I didn't understand why this was happening to me. And I was the egg. And I'm going to break these down and you can see where you fit into different situations. So you're in a heated situation. And I want you to think about these three objects getting dropped into hot water. The carrot, when it drops into hot water, what happens to it? Softens. Now, I want you to think about that. I want you to translate that for a second. If you're in a heated situation with someone or something and you soften, what do? Give in to them. Or give up. You give in or give up. And there's times in situations where maybe we shouldn't be giving in or giving up when we're in that situation. Sometimes there's places that we do. The egg does what? It's hard on the inside. So translate it. What's happening there? If you're the egg, I was the egg in this situation. What do? Get mad, angry, defensive. Start pushing back on somebody else because it's their fault. It's not my fault. It's all about them. And then take the coffee. Now, it's ground coffee in a filter. Sometimes people don't like the analogy if it's just a bean. But it's ground coffee in a filter going through that hot water. In that same situation, what's it doing? It makes the most delicious beverage on the planet. So it's looking for a way to make the situation better. And it's not until I can step away sometimes that I'm able to do that because I get so stuck in that moment. It's like, no, I quit. I give up. The carrot in some situations. Or the egg where I just get mad or angry. And I've been like that in many different places in my life. Mad and angry that I can't sleep, I can't eat, I make myself sick. And I want to start being more of that coffee bean and looking for the joy in those situations. Because when we're in those situations, I want you to think something that I've found here recently. It's called, the term is unlikely gratitude. You ever heard of it? Unlikely gratitude. What it is that we take that bad thing that has happened in our life. Think about it, that relationship that didn't go the way you wanted it to go. That financial situation that didn't have a good ending. That health problem that just never seems to go away or seems to compound. My kidney transplant, one of the drugs I was on is prednisone, and still on it today. And after 10 years of prednisone, it attacks my hips. So 8 years ago, I needed bilateral hip replacements because of one of the medicines that was saving my life for the kidney transplant. So I had both my hips replaced. So you sit there and you take all these things that are happening to us in your finances, in your relationships, in your health, and sometimes at church, and sometimes in our relationship with God, we sit there and we say, why did this happen? Unlikely gratitude says, if this situation that has happened in your life had been handpicked for you, that it had been crafted to help you get to the next place in your life, that it's a rung on a ladder that is ultimately going to get you to the next place that you need to be. Unlikely gratitude says, identify that and look for the good in what from the outside looks like a bad situation. It's not easy to do, but it's way better than giving up. And it's way better than giving in, and it's way better than getting angry. And I've been in all those situations in my life, and I want to focus on having unlikely gratitude this year. And it's not an easy thing, and I want to leave you with this final story of Kip, my son. When he was 10 years old, he got this video game for Christmas. How many people have seen it? He played Guitar Hero or something like it. And I see a lot of heads, and a few that maybe haven't. If you've never seen the game, you get a fake guitar. It's got buttons on it and a little lever that you have to push, and these colors come at you on the screen, and you have to push the buttons and move the lever, and if you do it all right, the song sounds the way the song's supposed to be played. And this was about 11 years ago, and I'll never forget, and I know life comes full circle when this happens. He comes to me and he's asking me about one of the songs from the video game. He's like, Dad, have you ever heard of a group called Journey? I said, yeah, I grew up with them. Saw him in concert. And so, you know, life comes full circle. And so when it happens and he plays this video game, and he finishes the video game all the way through the expert level, and he says to me, Dad, I'm ready. Ready? What are you ready for? Guess what he wanted after the video game? A real guitar. And we're a Dave Ramsey family. I know that we offer that here at our church. Great program. And so I started him young. I said, you want a guitar, you got to pay half. You got to come up with 50%, I'll match it. So he had to save, doing chores, and he saved up the money. We went down to Walmart, got him an acoustic, a starter guitar. And he goes and takes lessons down off of Chisholm Trail here, and Danny Ray's. And he's taking the lessons, and we're a couple months in, and he finally comes back to me and says, Dad, it's too hard. This is really hard playing this guitar. And he starts to explain how music works and the notes and just how the strings work and all that. And he's like, I can't do it, Dad, it's too hard. And he's 10, and I said, all right, he's ready for this advice. I'm going to give him some great advice. I put this quote in our book. I told him, I said, Kip, what you're going to find, and this is a life thing, it's not just a guitar thing. I said, everything is difficult until it isn't. And I'm just so proud. There's that dad moment. I landed it, and it's just like, I'm just ready for him to go, Dad, thanks, I needed that. This is really going to change my life. And he looks at me, crosses his arms, and he's like, that's from one of your workshops, isn't it? And it is. It's from one of my workshops. I teach this to all of our participants because they're learning to be better communicators on a stage or on a conference call or in a conversation. And it's hard. It doesn't go always smoothly the very first time you go do something. And so I say it's okay that you're not great from the very first beginning of it, the very first step, and from the start of it at all. It's okay. It's hard. Life is hard. Things are hard until it's not. Until eventually they get to become easy. And you're doing them with ease. And all the things that we're talking about today, that purpose and priorities and persistence, I want you to think about, they're going to be hard at first. And my challenge for you as we leave is I want you to document your purpose. Put it down in writing. Document what it is for you. Focus on that. I hope the 6 words helps. I hope the 1 word helps. Document it. I want you to live those priorities. And I want you to stay persistent. And let God's people together say, amen. Thank y'all so much for having me.
Thank you, Kevin, so much. What? Inspirational words? You guys feel a little motivated today? So, Kevin, come on up here. We have actually, I love listening to the words that y'all chose. As a church, we've chosen 4 words to express to the world who we are. And we put them on this t-shirt that I want to present to you on behalf of our church. And those 4 words are experience love, spread hope. That's who we are, church. And today we've been inspired to focus on our purpose, live out our priorities, and do it with persistence. Thanks for doing such a great job. And what a special joy it is that Kevin and his family are along for the ride with us. Well, it's almost lunchtime. And, you know, when I had that little name on my back, and I was told you really love him, you know, I didn't default to my favorite, which is David Johnson. And David, I'm going to ask you to come up. And David, we are brothers, and you know, we love Will, but we gang up on purpose, you know, get our way. But David is a godly brother. He's not only a friend of mine, he's a mentor and an inspiration in my life. And I know he is an inspiration and just a godly example as he leads us here at First United Methodist Church. And as part of the blessing, we want to do something special. So I know we're going to bless the food, but we're going to expand that blessing, and I'll let David explain.
Well, those who are new on the committees, please come up to the front. This is your first year serving. We'd love to have you come up here. So as they come up here, do y'all ever remember that thing you used to do in Sunday school? Y'all can come up front if this is your first year. Come up here, line up. Yeah, altar call, yes, come on up. So I don't know if you did this in Sunday school where you did this, like where's the church? Or here's the church, here's the steeple.